Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today I just wanted to react to a video that I saw a couple of days ago, and I think it's just it's emblematic of the issue, the struggle, the debate that's going on about color and racial classification in Brazil. I have had to backpedal on the way that I saw Brazil after having lived there for almost a decade, and just come to the conclusion that for the Brazil's black movement called the Movimento Negro, they've always classified black and what they call pardo, let's say preto meaning black, pardo meaning brown or mixed. They've always said that the pardo category plus the preto category should be considered the black population in Brazil, the combination of black and brown. Okay. Um, and that with the latest census data, we will come to the conclusion that there's like 120 million black people in Brazil. And I can't really subscribe to that because the Pardo mixed brown categories has so many different phenotypes there. You have people who are of majority indigenous ancestry. You got people there who have African ancestry. You got people there who may be mixed, but they're leaning more towards the white side. So I've said this again and again. There's no way we're going to really be able to know how many black people there are in Brazil because everybody's going to see it different. I recently did a video about actress Camila Pitanga, and there were about 400 comments that came in about that video with people talking about, she's not black, she's mixed. There's other people who say she's clearly black. If she identifies as black, her parents are black. Why isn't she black? And it was a huge debate going on there, and it was larger because I know there were a few Brazilians in that conversation, but there were a lot of probably Americans just defining how they see blackness. And as I said, go back to the 70s and 80s, anybody who was mixed and of African ancestry was just considered black. Now, it's an intriguing analysis comparison to see where Brazil is taking the racial classification versus where the United States is going. I'm just asking, like, okay, where are we going? Because the movement, the militants in Brazil, activists in Brazil have been trying to convince people in the brown mixed category to identify themselves as black, right? But then you have this oncoming, what they call pardo mestiço, mixed race movement coming on in Brazil and saying, no, pardos have no business being mixed in the black category. And I'm somewhere in the middle on that discussion because I know that within that pardo category, there are people who are clearly black. They may not be the darkest crayon in the box, but they're clearly black. So on the one hand, well, I can't say that every pardo should be defined as black. On the other hand, we can't say that there are not pardos who people would consider black. I've talked about this a number of times. I've talked about this several times, over the years. I see a little bit of both. This is why I'm comfortable to say we can't say how many black people there are in Brazil because everybody's going to see a little bit different. You're going to have people who classify one way while other people who are looking at them see them in another way. There's just really no conclusion to this discussion. And then within that discussion, you also have Black Brazilians are seeing like, look, we need to have some unity in our group if we're trying to get anywhere. And we're never going to get anywhere as long as we're bickering amongst each other about who was black and who was not. This person is black, this person is not black enough. And we've seen this go back and forth, right? So the video I'm reacting today, this young lady did a short video and it was shared on Instagram. And I'm just calling it, while we fight amongst ourselves over who is really black, they have it all and we battle over the crumbs. Now, this has been the battle cry for a number of years in Brazil, where people believe and they see that the white population has certain advantages over the black population. So it's like, how can we get anywhere if we don't unify? Because one group is saying, well, these people are not really black. They don't belong in our group. And so I'm like, which way Brazil? Because for years, it's taken decades for the black movement in Brazil to convince these quote unquote brown mixed pardos to join themselves into the black category. And then when they start doing that, now the black, more clearly looking black people are starting to reject some of those people. Like, these guys are taking our spaces. They're claiming themselves as brown, and they're taking the spaces that could be going to quote unquote legitimate black people. So it's becoming a huge debate going on right now. And it's just like, okay, the soul of Brazil, which way are you guys going? So let me get into this. I want to get into and react to the video. I have to always have to put this in a context, and I've got a number of links that I want to go through to explain to people who may not understand how race and color works in Brazil, because people, like, it's completely different in the US. It's similar to the US. There's differences in there, similarities on both sides. So let's get into this video for today. Definitely consider liking this video, sharing this video, drop a comment in the comment section. And I always love reading the comments, even though I don't have a chance to, respond to every comment. I like to read them. Gives me an idea how people are thinking. Definitely consider subscribing to this channel and clicking on the notification bell. So let me get into this video. I'll give it context and then review the video that I'm reacting to. So while we fight amongst ourselves over who is really black, they have it all, and we battle over the crumbs. That's what I'm calling today's video. This goes into the whole discussion of racial inequality in Brazil. And no matter what statistic you look at, in general, just considering the three main groups, you have branco, meaning white, pardo, meaning brown or mixed, and preto, meaning black. Okay. When you compare the socioeconomic situation of the white population versus the black and the brown, the white population has a clear advantage in almost every socioeconomic category you can think of. We're talking about school, we're talking about salary, people in managerial positions, you look at the political class in Brazil, everywhere you look, whites have an advantage over the black and brown. And part of the reason that the Movimento Negro has always argued to put black and brown together is because their socioeconomic statistics are almost identical in almost every category, and identically at a disadvantage in comparison to the white population. That's one of the main reasons why they argue that preto and pardo should go together. It begs the question again of who is black, or what they call negro, in Brazil. This is what I say. I'm comfortable saying, okay, there's a large black population in Brazil. We just don't know an exact number. What and who is a pardo? I mean, that becomes another problem, because it's hard to, for me, okay, where do you distinguish between somebody who's black and somebody who's pardo? Somebody who's preto and somebody who's pardo? Because what I'm saying is, no matter, most black people in all of the Americas are some degree of mixed race. So at what point do you say this person is mixed? At what point do you see that this person is black? That's always a good question for me, because even in the United States, you're going to have a lot of people like, okay, are we saying only pretos? If we were looking at this from the United States perspective, are we saying only people who have the color of Wesley Snipes, Flavor Flav, or Don Cheadle, those are only black people? And then all of the other shades of blackness, that should be mixed or pardo? That's where the problem comes in. It's like, if you only, what is your standard for what is considered black? And then what is your standard when you consider somebody as a pardo or brown? The other discrepancy we have in there, the problem with that, is that originally the term pardo in Brazil was used to classify people who were Native American or people who were mixed European Native American. Originally, those were pardos. Later on, that pardo came to be like a catch-all umbrella term for anybody who was whatever degree of mixture, which leads to this confusion. Today, in the last census, it became clear that pardos are now considered the majority in Brazil's population. And I would say for a long time, pardos have been the majority in the population. It's just that even though most people are of mixed race, some people identify as white, some of those mixed people identify as black. And then some of those people who are white and are black should actually go in the mixed category. So it's hard to say. And this is why I wanted to get into why the MNU, the Movimento Negro Unificado, joins pretos and pardos together to be black. And I'm going to give evidence as to why they've argued that for years. We get into the question of people being fraudulent when trying to take advantage of the affirmative action policies. They're supposed to benefit black, brown, and indigenous people. And I've said this for a long time. There have been people who have been living as white and seeing themselves as white for decades or since they were born. And now that, they've always identified as white, now that there's quotas on the table to take advantage of that, to be able to get a university education, they'll switch over and become brown all of a sudden. So this whole pot is just, everything is mixed up in Brazil, and there's no clear category sometimes. And this leads to a mess. How do we define someone who's white? Seeing a number of white people go to the United States and understand that they're not white, either because they are actually mixed or because they're just Brazilian and there's a different classification in the United States for what defines somebody as white. But that leads me to today's video. So this is what I want to review or react to this video that this young lady did. It was shared on the Afro Realeza Instagram channel, which means like Afro royalty, basically. This is a picture from a podcast. This is the rapper Mano Brown. Mano Brown is the lead rapper or most popular rapper in Brazil's most important hip hop group of all time. They're called the Racionais MCs. There's a documentary about them on Netflix. You check it out one day. But I'm going to come back to that because I have a picture of Mano Brown there for a few reasons. But before I get into anything else, let's just get into what she was saying in the video. The Instagram channel, in releasing and sharing this girl's reaction, they said, this is what they wrote to introduce her video. Says, that's what whiteness wants, talking about this, lack of unity between black, brown, just the Afro-descendant population in Brazil. That's what they want. That's what whiteness wants, us bickering amongst ourselves, for black people to fight amongst themselves. The black movement established that black is equal to the sum of black plus brown. My generation did this political engineering, and we said everything that is said that is brown and black for us is black. This is according to philosopher Sueli Carneiro. This is this lady right here who Mano Brown interviewed on his podcast some months ago. It might have been a couple of years ago. I know it was a really big interview. People were all talking about it. Sueli Carneiro is a philosopher. She's a well-known Afro-Brazilian activist. She's a feminist, and she's just quite an influential voice in Brazil for black women. So she said this in June 2022 on the podcast Mano a Mano by, again, the rapper Mano Brown. Okay. So what did Maristela Rosa, this lady here, what did she have to say about that? So I want to react to what she said and then get back into some of the links and just putting this further into context. And the brown mixed people, who goes around stealing our jobs, stealing our space, us, real black people. Do you really believe that? Do you really believe this crap that's really just making us fight over crumbs? So get this straight. The idea is that we, non-white people, are really going to have few opportunities, and then we're going to fight amongst ourselves to see who deserves it more. We're going to fight amongst ourselves to see who has suffered the most. And then we're going to say that it's actually brown mixed people who don't deserve opportunities and that we don't have opportunities because it's their fault. And while we're doing that, you know what we don't do? We don't discuss the real nature of the system we live in. Capitalist, racist, which tells us all the time who deserves space and who doesn't. Who deserves to live a full life and who doesn't. And who deserves it? White people, rich people. They have everything and we're left with the crumbs. And we fight over the crumbs and we fight amongst ourselves to say who deserves more of the crumbs or not. Okay, so you see what Maristela Rosa had to say about this topic. Her thing is, are we really going to keep fighting amongst ourselves? Are we going to really continue to blame the Pardus, the mixed brown people, for what we feel to be a lack of opportunities? And while we're fighting over this, white people continue to go on with the advantages that they have. This is basically what she's saying, and she's pointing out this lack of unity and this bickering that's going on, between, well, we're the real black people. You guys are almost black. So after all of these years of trying to get Pardus, brown mixed people of African ancestry, to join the black group, then the black group itself is saying that brown group doesn't belong in here. They're not black as us. They're not black enough. So this is what the argument is really getting out of control, because I'm seeing this back and forth going. There are a number of Pardu activists on Instagram and other places, and they're arguing. They're saying this like, we don't belong in the black group. There should be a separate brown group and a separate black group. And this is what I'm saying. It's going to be a problem that the Movimento Negro is going to have to deal with. I've always said, when I saw the contradictions within the Movimento Negro, because they will use the high numbers of Pardus in Brazil to give everybody the idea that there's 120 million black people in Brazil. But when those same Pardus want to go and qualify for quotas for affirmative action, then people will say, well, you're not black enough. So this, to me, is a contradiction. You can't accept them as black to blow up the numbers of black Brazilians, but then deny them the opportunity to have quotas when the quotas were made for black, brown, and indigenous people. Kind of like they shoot themselves in the foot. But what is the argument of the movimento negro? Before I talk about that, I want to talk about fraud. This is what I'm saying about a lot of quote unquote white Brazilians who have moved over into the brown population to identify themselves as brown, pardo, or even black to take advantage of affirmative action. This is what all of these stories are about, these fraudulent cases. There's been thousands over the years. Now, the movimento negro in Brazil has long argued that pretos and pardos belong in the same category because the rate of poverty, for example, is twice as large among pretos and pardos as it is for the white population or the brancos, right? So all of the statistics that you see in Brazil that has to do with socioeconomic, quality of life, you'll always see the white population having advantages vis-a-vis the black and brown population. So for example, let's see, the rate of poverty among white people was 18.6% in this last study from 2021, while with pretos, it was 34.5%, and for pardos, it was 38.4%. So this similarity between pretos and pardos is the argument that the movimento negro has long made. This is social, when we're talking socioeconomically, pretos and pardos are almost identical and at a disadvantage vis-a-vis the white population. What else do we have here? Extreme, the line of extreme poverty. For whites, the rate is 5%. For pretos or blacks is 9%. For pardos, it's 11.4%. The rate of unemployment, 16.5% for pretos, 16.2% for pardos, while for whites, it was only 11.3%. Almost every statistical category, you'll find whites at the top with black and brown almost exactly even. The average income of the white population was almost 3,100 reais per month. For pretos or blacks, it was 1.7. It was 1,764 reais versus pardos 1,814 reais. Almost exactly the same. Let's see okay. In terms of schooling, let me see here. 6.8% of white students were not attending school, while that number for pretos and pardos was 13.5 and 15.2% respectively. As you can see, in some categories, pretos have a slight advantage over pardos, and in others, pardos have a slight advantage over pretos. But oftentimes, the difference between the two is negligible, which is why the movimento negro is saying these two groups belong together. Let me see. What else can I document here? What's another good one? Okay, violence. Rates of homicide, 11.5 deaths per 100,000 people for the white population, while it was 21.9% for pretos and 34.1% for pardos. That's quite a big difference between the pardo and the preto categories. Some people would ask, which one of these two populations has it worse off? Sometimes it's the preto population, sometimes it's the pardo population. But again, both are at a huge disadvantage vis-a-vis the white population. Let's see, victims of violence was 20.6% for pretos, 19.3% for pardos, and 16.6% for whites. So consistently, if you do any analysis, I mean, some of this information is available in English. The thing that I have to keep my eye on is sometimes they join the preto pardo category into one and just call it the população negro, the black population. Sometimes they don't separate the two because the idea, again, is because they're so similar, why don't we just put their statistics together? Let me see here. Again, so this is some of the same data that I just read. You'll see some of the same numbers because it's from the same report. Pretos and pardos are more, they have got, in the last few decades, they've risen how many years they stay in school, but still, even with that rise, in comparison to the white population, they still lag behind. The pardo category, as I said before, originally it was to recognize people of indigenous ancestry. The term pardo was used to define either indigenous people or people who were mixed indigenous and European. And they would call these people pardos. This is the article that you can find at Wikipedia about the term pardo. The other thing I want to point out here, which makes this a little bit confusing, which is why I have to my own opinion is that, yes, there are black people in the Pardo category. I'm not going to say all of them are black, though. In the 20th century, a growing number of Brazilians who used to self-report as black or preto in earlier censuses, they chose to move to the Pardo category. Also, a significant part of the population that used to self-report as white moved to the Pardo category. So this is what I'm saying. Even though the term Pardo was originally meant for people of indigenous ancestry, it's like anybody can claim the term Pardo if they're of whatever mixture. So this is why I'm saying I think the Movimento Pardo they make a mistake when they don't consider that part of the Pardo population is actually black. There's a lot of people in that Pardo category who are just whatever degree of mixture, and even some people who are even darker skinned who consider themselves Pardos. I've seen that also. I've seen some very dark skinned Brazilians who define themselves as Pardos also. So for the Movimento Mestiça, look at the picture that they chose. They chose this girl to be a preto and this girl to be a Pardo. And I'm not disagreeing that this girl right here is not a Pardo, but what I am saying is that this person doesn't seem to be of visible African ancestry, but there are a number of Pardos, perhaps millions of them, who have more African features. So this is kind of misleading to me. It's not misleading to the degree that the person on the left is not a Pardo. It's just misleading to present only that image as a Pardo when we know that persons of African descent are also in that Pardo group. A good example of a Pardo, and I'm using that just loosely, okay? I'm not saying this is one of Brazil's top black actresses, Thaís Araújo, okay? To me, this woman is clearly black. I mean, look at some of her pictures. This was her as a little girl. She said she suffered bullying in the school she went to. Thaís is clearly black to me, but she has a lighter skin tone. So Thaís, a lot of people will classify Thaís as a Pardo, but this is what I'm saying about the classification of Pardo. Within that Pardo category, you have people who look like Thaís Araújo, who is not the darkest black woman you're going to find, but she is clearly of visible African ancestry, which is what my point is. Now, to even give an example of why I'm arguing this. Some years ago, let me see what the year this article is from. This is from 2019. Thaís Araújo steps down from playing the role of a renowned Black Brazilian scientist in a film. So this woman's story, Joana d'Arc Felix, they were going to make her story into a biopic. They chose Thaís Araújo to play her role, to play the part in the movie. And after listening to what people were saying, it was just like, Thaís is not dark skinned. This role should go to a dark skinned woman. So this is what my point is. Both of these women are black, but Thaís clearly has lighter features. She has lighter skin tone. It does not mean just because you could classify Thaís color wise as a Parda, that does not mean she's not black. Thaís Araújo, she met Viola Davis some years ago, so they consider themselves to be friends. And as you can see, Thaís Araújo is several tones shaded than Viola Davis, but are we going to say Thaís is not black? That's part of what my whole argument is here. You have somebody like Neymar. Now, I respect the fact that some people don't see Neymar as black. Just through my eyes, I've always seen him as just a lighter skinned black guy. Now, if some other people want to just define him as a Pardo, okay, I get that. But can we not say that this guy, it would be intriguing just to see how many people would look at Neymar and say, okay, he's black or he's not black. Some people would just take the easy way out and say this guy is mixed. And I'm saying, okay, you can call him that. But again, a Pardo of mixed race who is of African ancestry, I don't know if there's anywhere in the world where Neymar would go and be, accepted as white, which is what my point is. You have somebody like Sharon Menezes. I've done a video about her. Sharon Menezes is clearly a black woman, but she has a lighter skin tone. She's not light skinned. She's a light brown skin woman. But to me, this is still a black woman. So this is the other thing. You could have people who are considered black, but they are of the color brown. This is part of the point that I'm making here. I just did a video about Camila Pitanga, and people argue back and forth. She's not black. She is black. How do you see Camila? Some people say she's not black. I know for a fact that she's at least partially black, right? So that's what, in essence, this is what the whole argument is about. Where do we cut off between what is black and what is brown? This is Mano Brown. Again, he's one of the top rappers, most recognized, most respected rappers in the country. From what I understand about Mano Brown, he had a white father. Now, don't quote me on that. I think I read that somewhere. But what I'm saying is that, okay, even though I can say Mano Brown is probably of mixed race, to me, that's a black man. He has a lighter skin tone. Looks like a black man to me. Okay. Then look how the Pardue is listed here. Some people will take an issue with that because they'll use, that looks like Halle Berry, actually. I'm not sure. But this is what I'm saying. Pardue and Pareto, there's a significant portion of the Pardue population that actually could be considered Black. It's just that we can't say that all of them, because some of those Pardues look like this right here, like this indigenous girl. Okay. So anyway, that's why I just wanted to give some context behind what this girl was saying, is because all the bickering is going on between who is Black, who's not Black. Oh, these Pardues don't belong in our category, or they're not Black enough. And then you got Pardues are saying that we're Black too, we just have a lighter skin. And you got other people saying, no, we're Pardues, we have nothing to do with the Black population. So it's confusing. I don't have a direct answer for this. This is something for Black Brazilians to have to figure out. But that's why I just wanted to bring this piece to my subscribers today, just to understand the complexities of the color question in Brazil. Hope I didn't make it more complex, but this is what's going on. So curious to know what you thought about today's video. Drop a comment in the comment section. Like this video, share this video. Consider subscribing to this channel. Click on that notification bell so you know when I put up another video. And with that said, I'm going to end this video here and request that you all come back. Check out the next video that I post.